and it's called New Age Cliff. Every new year, rainbow cunt tree, rainbow cunt tree. Every new year sure sounds good to me, with a side of drugs, and it does, and it morphs me. It's head rush, and the morgue. I need so much. Fuck, I needed ice to feel younger. Then the problems multiply, and all the icebergs are supposedly melting. The burbs are pipe dreams, rainbow country. Only a highway away. Starbucks and lip gloss embody the meaning of life. And meanwhile, I'd like to welcome you to the 14th Bach tune. There's still one full Bach tune to decide what to do with our pick tune. Maybe Pasolini for the new age, minus murder. Maybe Rome for the next marathon, so I can finally wear the right shoes. Because the problems are many. Foot problems, neck problems, fisticuff problems, styling for dollars problems, needing a buttocks massage problem, and constantly nauseous. The Queen of Pentacles is younger than me. True or false? I have so much fashionableness left, but when I say I pray, I might be showing off. I might just be on drugs, waiting for things to get better. But on bright moonlit nights, I'm as crepuscular as the next guy, just as ardent. I hardly have any secrets. I'll think about it. I used to have a secret, but I forgot what it was. I'm not a feminist, for the record. Did you know my anger is intense? Partly because I ignore none of the signs, and partly because I need an imaginary standard distance between the Pope and my dad. I call it life force. Only virtue is in the ballpark. Living in the woods, soaping with grapefruit, growing out my teeth, letting myself go. Tracksuits are awesome for that kind of thing. I don't have one. I'm surrounded by galactic bounty hunters, and I need much more dragonry than I was allotted. Only my brothers had dicks, and my dad. When he wore a towel half-mast after a shower. Long, long before he ever died, which he's now done. I believe it's quite an accomplishment. So actually, my dad did pass away this summer while I was doing revisions on this book, and this book is it's a pretty angry book, and I think that it's angry in a very exaggerated way that is angry at culture. But you know, like Carl Jung said that the family is society in embryo, and so there's all these sort of fractal systems that start at one place and they grow. So there's a lot of things in here that seem sort of about a particular family, but actually are kind of archetypal. But nevertheless, I've been like really hoping to God that my family doesn't figure out that I just published a book, which so far has worked really great, until my aunt shows up. But if anyone is going to show up, I'm very delighted that it's them. The first flag comes from a quote. I'm a doula, so do you guys know what a doula is? Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 years ago, I would ask that and people would be like, no, I don't have any idea. But it's kind of, now people know. Anyway, a doula is a childbirth assistant, kind of like a coach, not a midwife. I don't deliver babies. But I had an opportunity to make placenta medicine for one of my doula clients a couple of years ago. I encapsulated her placenta, and it was truly like the most, really very powerful thing to do. And it worked great for her. So the first flag comes from a quote by a guy named Lloyd deMause, and he has an article called The Fetal Origins of History. I think I know it by heart. It's the epigraph to the book, and it goes, indeed, the fact is, the placenta of the pharaoh was carried on a pole into battle. This is history's first flag. So that's where the title comes from. And there's several sections. The first poem I'm going to read is from the 4th section called The Tower, and it's called Essay on My Tower. And it has an epigraph from Maurice Sendak, who has the same birthday as me. I think he's really awesome. I'm in the milk, and the milk's in me. It's from In the Night Kitchen. My small awakening pearls in a bell, amid the wind-blown bird song and bats touristing the tower, where I nest in late grandmother's hair strands and rose petals. I often press myself against the column, all the water, my body's spectral crashing waves under skirt, or the more bird-like comportment of zero trauma ever. Or is this a well? I conjure extra instinct in the higher air. Animals transit the rotunda, moths venture here to whiten and die. This must be real, then. I can't stop touching the shape. At the head of the cylinder, seated at the right hand of the head of the table. My small glass thought divined from the bottom of my nakedness. If I ever could touch and feel it, I'm in the cock and the cock's in me, as if my inner violet finally opened with Mars as its ruling planet, as a tower about war, between structure and lightning, the God and the details of pure air and the bruise I believe to be true. Bruise-colored tissue, eclipsing the solar heart of me, the core of this traumatic need for infinite contact with pure surgeon tower dazzle. My tower spectacular, me straddling bear claw and speculation, cave goddess and risky behavior, as if my mouth, inner mouth, can't stop rooting for the primal colossus, the pure and vigorous heart of my tower of towering father at the bottom of every well. I wanted to share, do you guys know Hakeem Bey? Cool, you will now. I just got this book from a friend of mine. I just had a kidney infection. It's so random, but my friend gave me this book as a present for having it. It's called Revolution, a Reader. It's a great book. And Hakeem Bey is a guy who, one of his big things is the Temporary Autonomous Zone, or TAZ, which we're probably in right now. You know, it's kind of like Burning Man is like a temporary autonomous zone. So I just thought I would read a little bit from him, just to keep revolutionary spirit going. We're still in the beginning of 2013, you know, and I think it's a good year for revolution. So this is from his essay, Temporary Autonomous Zone. Children whose clarified senses betray them into a brilliant sorcery of beautiful pleasure reflect something feral and smutty in the nature of reality itself. Natural, ontological anarchists, angels of chaos, their gestures and body odors broadcast around them a jungle of presence, a forest of prescience complete with snakes, ninja weapons, turtles, futuristic shamanism, incredible mess, piss, ghosts, sunlight jerking off, birds' nests, and eggs. The only ones who actually wish to share the mischievous destiny of those savage runaways, only ones who can understand that cherishing and unleashing are the same act. These are mostly artists, anarchists, perverts, heretics, able to meet only as wild children might, while adults gibber from behind their masks. So get this, our realization, our liberation depends on theirs. Not because we ape the family, those misers of love who hold hostages for a banal future, nor the state, which schools us all to sink beneath the eventual horizon of a tedious usefulness. No, but because we and they are images of each other. We share the same enemies, and our means of triumphant escape are also the same, a delirious and obsessive play, powered by the spectral brilliance of the wolves and their children. Hakeem Bey. Yeah, he's cool. So I think of this book, I really love children. It's partly why I'm a doula. I'm the oldest of 6 children. I'm the oldest of 19 cousins. I have only one child, a daughter. She's not a child anymore. She's almost 23. But I think of this book as being definitely not a book for kids. Like, I wouldn't want anyone younger than 18, maybe, to read this book. So it's been a weird conundrum. Since I love kids so much, I write this book that's not really for kids. And then I realized, oh no, this is a book for kids. Like, no, they don't need to read this because they don't need this information. But adults who are so stupid could make things better for kids, right? So anyway, this is a poem called Daughter Object. And the first kind of bit of the book is has a lot of psychoanalysis going on in it. Daughter Object, and it has an epigraph, again, from Lloyd de Maus, the placenta guy. All religions contain at their center the suffering fetus and its poisonous placenta. In his efforts to improve her, my father removed a gland from my mother's entrails. Helmeted by her hive, hair, and pretty penny eyes, she found his intrusion a thrilling privilege. He who soared like a cliff face before the perceived paucity of her inner dross and dirt-infested origins. She whose very organs reeked of sweet street swill and bog moss. To this gland he applied all the instruments and potions of his trade. He blew through it a wind from his youth and caressed its thickening hide. He placed it on a dish in the sunshine, and thus did he grow me. I pleasured him with the cuteness of my body's primitive neutrality and the soft pink swoons nimbling from my flower throat. I toddled around in the dish sphere, highlighted. Meanwhile, the sun's measured glance began to cinder and curl my proliferating mechanics. I acquired folds and lobes, a misshapen middle part modeled by holes he had neglected to suture, so that the outside air with its mother dust entered, deformed, and blighted me. My father found himself repulsed and finally indifferent. He hung me to cure in a tree. The birds strung me with mysteries, dark cravings, wove nests from my hair, sang through me. I was a bird brothel, a tremble. I was too much frenzy under the moon. My father dreaded in passing and shunned. Father shadowed entities gazed, they root and coil and hunger, tongue my every aspect. If they weren't the only him I had, I'd ask the birds to peck out their eyes. There's a middle part of this book, it's called Comma, and it's a sort of long serial. Can I give you this book to hold? It's like this. Thanks.
Mine now.
It's in 4 parts, and it's a long serial poem, but it's kind of like written over these old anatomical images that are from the public domain. So I'm just going to read a couple of maybe one poem from each section. They're real little parts. So this is from section 1 in Comma. I slid out of my mother's body, of being numinous, of drift and syringe, of metal atonement, of a tube-fed melancholy, of post-terror karmic, of a certain amount of ear, of the smog smear around the blood hollow, of the ossified berry like a cave cataract, of my mind branched out through the fontanelle, antlering, leaves letting go of me. Speaking of antlering, do you guys know Antler, the poet? There's a poem for Antler in here.
Jeff's going to beat you up.
Huh?
Jeff is going to beat you up.
He was going to beat me up?
Jeff will.
Jeff Ponowitz?
Yeah,
I don't ever know how to say his last name.
Wife.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I really love
Antler.
Antler.
Me too.
I'm from Milwaukee, but I never met Antler. I only heard of Antler when I lived in Milwaukee, and sometimes I thought Sparrow and Antler were the same people. Sparrow's another poet from another place. But he came to Minneapolis a couple years ago and I met him, and that was that. I really fell in love with him. So there's a poem in here for him. It's called My Antler. Anyway, okay. Here's from part 2 of Comma, Dr. Kronos. The mythic father is God and monster both. He might choose to eat you, or eat your children, or his. A medium told me a father figure had corded to my solar plexus to feed on my son, extract its Gnostic enzymes. Sonic yellow sphere all tooth-edged around him, consuming me like an aristocrat his soup, wheeling around in his sterilized armor, courting insatiably to everyone, men in masks and war gear, courted to the mother gluten, sucking out our babies. And one more from that section, born in prison. While everyone else goes off to war, I'm confined to a ward. Ursula, impulsive nurse, locks me in. I'm a comma on the cot. Some soul scraps catch air from the vent and abandon me like strands of hair. It's January and there's snow. The lounge TV features our patriarch lauding noble attacks on small foreign targets. He places his hand on his heart as instructed by God. On the ward below, my daughters in nightgowns circle the citadel. They swallow their meds. Outside the ER, a school bus catches ice, then plows through the hospital windows. Nurses toss fire back and forth. I pretend to regurgitate their pills, but I like drugs. If only I had a fever. My daughters engrave the names of future children on their inner arms with slivers of bulletproof glass. They drizzle their red syrup, circling burning foxholes into the floor with their foot pads. Those dear girls source their own arteries for jumping rope and chant, "Say, O enemy, come disappear with me, and bring your pharmacy, climb up my torture tree, slide down my cutter blade into my Seroquel, and fade away we will, forevermore, shut the door." "Your father runs this hospital," said the chaplain, disrobing. My dad actually was a doctor and worked at a hospital where there was a chaplain who would be always in a hurry, and he would say mass in the hospital every Sunday. So like, if you wanted just the 20-minute mass, you would go there. And he literally would like take off like his street clothes and put on his vestments while saying mass. So sometimes like details from real life really can come in handy when you're... Okay, here's from part 3. Poetry is magic. Offspring of my absolute desires, shrivel on the lake's hide, while the great blue heron orates windily from a moss cove. The cold is not absolute or abetting. The scarlet branch trap's latch is merely aesthetic. At flame school, they taught me how to reach into the mercury for more death, or else to wade through want waves pretending the blades of my thighs are grass and won't scorch me. Raccoon. I find deer-headed driftwood wedged in the jaws of the green, God-wide lake. I write the deer, stake an amniotic totem. Once a horse walked across this lake as a messenger for rest. Once a live deer inhabited my city yard from midnight to midnight. But from deeper bowels of fog, Raccoon appears to pour his face into my face and mask me with his medicine. Everyone has medicine. Kinesthetic, culinary, mathematical, stone, money, tree. Some people might have horse medicine. They have helped me. I don't know why I carry raccoon medicine. Ambassador. Raccoon midwifes the baby from the eye of the fire, head first blooming through ash into flame. Raccoon's trowel-handed forceps. This baby is an ambassador for all the dead babies. He's char-dusted, the birth muck melded to him. Raccoon sets the baby to cool on a pit rock, steals off to teethe the placenta. I look at my baby boy on the rock. He had been immaterial to me, like a god, like a disease. I'll just read 2 more from this. These are from the last section. Kula. My coma broke up into sediment and reconvened as a cave, where I lived like others had before me. I used their bones as scare sticks in case of bear. My fire had dissolved in the shuffle of my sleep, and I missed it. I had cold feelings and wished for the sight of things. In time, I fingered open a hole and saw at last a bit of sky. I suckled there, and the hole dilated. I tasted tree bean, bog forest. I smelled it. I tingled. My head finally slid through. Advancing toward me, I saw some boys carrying beacons and kindling. They were not dead babies. They had fire, had fur. Their faces and arms were speckled with blood and moss. Like they came over and lifted me out. It hardly hurt at all. This is the very last little piece and comma. Inside the deer. Inside the deer, our wish for sanctification gestates. She sleeps on the scrap side of the desert, and her dreams fly from her mind as seeds that supplant and swell into ancestral faces peering up through the dirt. These ancient ones multiply and flower. We eat them. And I think I'll just read one more. I'll read the last poem in the book. And so I mentioned the placenta medicine. I actually have photographs of the placenta. It was really, I mean, there's a lot of images in this book, a lot of photographs. And it would have been awesome if they were in color, but you know, this book is going to lose money, so they're not going to be able to afford that. But for sure, I was like, please, can you just do the placenta ones in color? I think they'll put them on the website, though. But yeah, that's an actual placenta. That's my kitchen. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And there's a philosopher named Luce Rigori, who's a French feminist philosopher, and she has this whole concept of placental economy. And I'll just read you a little quote from her. Placental economy equally respects and supports the life of both mother and fetus, without recourse to differential combat. The female body engenders with respect for difference. So this poem is called Post-Natural. I'm holding a bleeding placenta. It clot ruptures in the sink, dangling its white curl, and into a colander, and porcelain droplets, and leaking through my fingers a moon waters down, and bears her vessels, unpeels. I unpeel her aquatic veil, puddles and tissue, slovenly, and reveals reptilian top skin, spongy meat, and emits a surreal film upon the atmosphere's olfactory estate, womby distillation. And the moon's a red surround, and mediates as numinous Coraline, and continually negotiates and is equally our common grave. And inside herself is just the meat of the blood-red moon. And I cook the moon and tear off her gristle, poke her with a bleed stick, grate. And balking at the moon, the blood-soaked, beleaguered moon cake, sliced up like leather on a baking sheet, moon clots snailing down the white sides. And it's like a membrane and ecosystem. And the moon is cut up in cooking, but that's not the real moon. Skin stench before the moon, swelling with the steam of the ghost moon. Lumen, hymen, island, lokia, cosmos. Thank you so very much.